I kind of equate a senior marketing role as an FSO. An FSO has to plug in and integrate with infantry, supply logistics, HR, resourcing, and then even air, right? Like air command. You have to have a sort of understanding of like what all the levers are doing in the company, in the business, in the formation. Plug into that and drive that, push that product or service.
This is All Quiet on the Second Front, a podcast where boring conversations around defense tech and national security come to die. Join me, Tyler Sweat, and my Second Front homies as we dismantle the mundane and cut through the bureaucratic bullshit to demystify the world of defense tech. But be warned, this is not a typical government podcast. Are you ready to get weird?
What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Tyler Sweat. Welcome to another episode of All Quiet on the Second Front, the podcast where boring defense talk goes to die. I have one of my dearest, longest, oldest friends here that I have been fortunate to watch a lot of the magic, maybe behind the scenes or like next to the scenes of what Rob's been able to do. Rob, Black Rifle Coffee, thanks for joining us today, brother. And really excited to click in here and talk about a little bit of maybe the parts of this that don't get talked about a lot.
Yeah, no, Tyler, it's an honor to be here. Thanks for having me. And yeah, I'm in Salt Lake City right now. Excited to chop it up with a fellow West Pointer and someone I've looked up to for a while. So it's funny. I think we booked this podcast recording like 5 months ago, and it's finally fucking happening. Can I swear on the podcast?
You could swear. Okay. You could. Yeah, this is a total.
Everyone knows I have a dirty mouth, so I feel like the conversation flows better when I'm not like, like hamstrung.
Trying to keep it too uppity.
Yeah, like frick, gosh darn it. It's not really part of my vocab, but dude, I'm so stoked to be here. Your team's great, as you know. We've done a lot of work offline together too, and we're friends. And so anything I can do to support you, man, I'll always jump on it.
Dude, likewise, brother. So, for folks who might not know you, might only be familiar with internet personalities and stuff, like who are you? Which story? What are you working on now?
Yeah, I appreciate it. So everybody, my name is Rob Boeckmann. I was born in 1990 in Germany, right after the fall of the wall. So I grew up in an Army brat household, born and raised in Germany, grew up overseas in Germany and Europe, went to West Point, graduated West Point, became a field artillery officer, and then found myself in advertising and marketing. And then fast forward to today, I've worked at a few agencies over the years, worked for the ownership group of the Florida Panthers, then moved to Amazon Web Services, where I ran social there for a couple of years, specifically on the brand and sports side. And then now I oversee all social media strategy at Black Rifle Coffee as the director of social for BRCC. So I just started. It's a great op tempo. It's a great team. I'm learning a lot. I feel like I'm back in the military in a good way. And kind of using my skills of advertising, social media marketing, influencer marketing, kind of my personality, some of my leadership traits that I've, gained since West Point, kind of bringing that into the mix here at Black Rifle. And we're moving forward with a lot of dope shit that we're doing. And we not only sell coffee now, but we're doing energy drinks. So, we'll have to get you some, Tyler, and chop it up that way. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's super interesting, right? I think you don't see a ton of folks who are like, hey, like I transitioned out of the military and I went into advertising. I went into like big brand sort of strategy stuff, right? Like you see a lot of banking, you see a lot of you're starting to see
such a good point.
Like, talk to me about just that as a point of transition. Like what got you interested there?
Yeah.
How did you find that jump? And like, how has it, now that you've sort of run some cycles in it, like what are you seeing changing as a spot for people to transition into?
That's such a great point. When I got out of the military in 2017, after my second deployment to Kuwait and Iraq, shout out, Camp Buring, so boring. But that was kind of the rise of social media, right? Like Instagram had just launched IG stories in 2016, 2017. People were starting to see, and I was starting to pick this up as an Army captain, I was starting to understand how people were utilizing and monetizing on social media. And I thought as a young Army officer, That's probably something to keep in mind for future business, for future opportunities in the military. If I stayed in, I wanted to go PSYOP or SF. I did not get picked up for either. So I left the military in 2017. I was actually stationed in Germany, got out of the army in Germany, where I'm born and raised. And I wanted to do something that was marketing, music industry, because I'm a big house music techno fan, or something in the advertising realm, right? And so I didn't really lean or gravitate towards finance. I'm not a big spreadsheet guy. I see the potential there to earn a lot and everything, but I didn't gravitate towards finance or consulting. I didn't really want to pursue an MBA. I wanted to just get right into the action somehow in a startup or in some business in Europe when I got out of the military. And I had a high school friend, Chris Kostenholz, shout out to Chris. He had just launched like the first premier influencer agency in Germany, I think 2 years prior. So in 2017, I applied to Pulse Agency. I was like, Chris, I bring a tremendous background in operations and leadership. Throw me in the mix. I understand social media because I'd been running Drunk Old Grad at the time for a couple years by then, almost 2 years. So I understood the content creator realm. It had some operations and framework and structure in place where I thought I could really dial in and help this agency with big brand partnerships and getting influencer activations done in Europe. So I applied, I got the job, and I was there for about a year. And I got my feet wet with like Volkswagen Group, Fiat, David Beckham's House 99, the Police sunglass brand, which was big at the time with Lewis Hamilton. So I really started to see, I wasn't getting paid shit, by the way, because it's Europe. Going from captain's pay to like 25K a year is tough in Europe, but no one's really making money like that in Europe. You know what I mean? It's different. If you're an executive, you are, but I wanted that experience in that marketing hands-on, especially in the advertising social media realm. And so I did that for a year, and I worked with all these big brands in Europe, activated with another energy brand at Coachella in 2018. So really started to understand music and the way social integrates with big activations and plugs into even B2C and B2B businesses with Formula One. And then from there, I kind of just continued working in social media marketing. And I got hired by another agency where we focused on US Army, West Point, DoD social activations and content. And that was 2018 to 2019. And then fast forward to today, I'm at Black Rifle. But I always had a keen eye for content. Launched Drunk Old Grad in 2015, right? When I was still in the Army, had to play that hush hush a little bit. It was like kind of like an open secret, right? Like we all kind of knew who did it, but not really. And I love the idea of social media marketing. I saw the amount of people that are on Instagram and Facebook, and there's a way to captivate, change perception, and sell products or raise awareness or just have some fucking fun. And you can kind of all do that with social media. And I think if you're able to take a step back and not be critical of yourself, but also take shit, like you're able to go pretty far in social media marketing. So all that to say, yeah, like nothing really excited me like from the traditional Cameron Brooks pipeline of, like the way the traditional Army officer or military officer kind of leaves service and pivots into something that was never like really made for me.
You see, as you now have the chance to sort of like look back and kind of reflect, like, what do you think people get? Like, what are the assumptions people make that they're completely wrong? Like, everybody's on the outside. I think to a lot of folks, like, especially if you're like a finance, like you're a spreadsheet guy or gal, or, you're a technologist, like, marketing and like advertising is like a little like magic, and you're like, hey, marketing guy, like make the marketing go burr. But what do you see people like really not understand where you're helping?
Yeah, that's a great
kind of get them wrapped around it.
Yeah, so I think nowadays you can be a creative and a brand marketer, if you will, but if you're not data driven and quantifying and seeing what works and what doesn't work, and understanding a budget and resourcing, you're fucked. And I think a good marketer is someone who is able to work cross-functionally with that, wonderful term. But it's like, so I was a fire support officer. I kind of equate the marketing role or a senior marketing role as an FSO, where an FSO has to plug in and integrate with infantry, supply logistics, HR, resourcing, and then even air, right? Like air command. So you have to be understanding, you have to have a sort of understanding of like what all the levers are doing in the company, in the business, in the formation, plug into that and drive that, push that product or service. FSOs kind of do that. Like you understand the commander's intent from the combat side, but then you also have to understand your limitations and resources to meet that commander's intent and objective. And I feel like with marketing, that's the same thing. You get the directive from the CEO, you have to occupy key terrain to push forward, and you have to understand what your resources are. And so a successful marketer understands what the CEO and the board and the CEO are trying to do, supports them, also works with the CFO or the finance side, understands the legal ramifications and the left right limits of what they cannot do. So people typically assume marketing is just like event flyers and maybe a social media post. It's actually not. And when you're dealing in big business, there are so many levels of approvals and checklists and left right limits that you have to abide by to be a successful marketer, to just get something out of the door and launched. And I think a lot of that is very similar to the military, especially when you get into big brand moments like a Veterans Day or a Super Bowl, aka the big game, or a 4th of July or a Black Friday, Cyber Monday. You're dealing with a super big integrated like marketing effort, which is almost like a combined task force where you have everybody dialed in from advertising to social media to PR, right? To all these different levers that kind of fall under marketing. And you kind of have to push for like to the same objective. So there's so much similarity between like the artillery world and marketing. I think that's maybe why I've been able to last as long in marketing, is because there's so much similarity. You're on the spot all the time. Remember when you're in the military and like the FSO is always getting a lot of shit. And the marketer in today's world, if you're a performance or brand marketer like I am, you're in front of the big bosses. You have to stand up and you have to take shit if your plan is not going well or if it is well. And you have to be able to take some heat, especially when it comes to creative stuff, right? Like the image behind you, like like Putin and Kim Jong-un, like there's probably 10 people who are probably deciding as to like launch that. And there's some people who probably hated it and some people who didn't. And now it's probably a top performer or seller on Amazon, whatever. But like there's a lot of things you have to navigate to be a successful marketer. And it's more than just, hitting publish on a post.
Yeah, it's super interesting the way you explain that, right? Because I don't think maybe subconsciously, but I don't think I'd ever like overtly been like, yeah, hey, like it's a targeting cycle or an OODA loop, or you think about like how does data feed that, and we look at like what does an effective joint task force do, right? It executes something, it learns from it, it slightly changes it, and executes the next thing. And the ability to do that in rapid succession with high precision is
precision.
Yeah, what makes the military a lethal fighting force and what makes marketing. So from a transferability standpoint, right? Like what I'm hearing is like folks that understand sort of, the kill chain, the OODA loop and all of that. There's some pretty good, that's super fucking interesting. I'd never thought about it.
And you know what's really cool too is like when you get targeting packets or like a quick sprint for a CAS plan or something has to happen rapidly, you do that same battle drill in marketing where if there is something that really fucking sticks out or that maybe not so much on the B2B side, right? Or defense tech, maybe. But for us on the consumer side, if there's a big trend that's coming up, if there's something that went crazy overnight, let's say our product is picked up by an A-list celebrity and it goes viral. Stuff like that, we have to have battle drills for on how to respond and how to proactively have a brand voice. And that trickles back to some of the stuff I learned as an artillery officer, react to contact, how to do quick CAS support, all that shit. And then there's obviously the prolonged like campaign plans that is like Veterans Day. It's always going to be there, right? We can work backwards from that, have that full MDMP cycle, bring in everybody, like I said, like across the board, all the different stakeholders, and really have that combined effort. But then you also have to understand how to do those quick battle drills for content, how to put out some social stuff that's really timely, right? And unfortunately, and fortunately, I kind of make my money with like staying topical and being on trends, right? Like that's what people want and that's how people consume content. So as a marketer, a really good marketer understands the quick hitter stuff that can be a brand awareness play. And then you have to understand like the long forward planning stuff as well and how that kind of feeds into the company. And I think a lot of people don't get that right. A lot of people assume that the marketing side is just a creative bunch of bros and gals just tossing around ideas. It's actually not. It's actually the fucking opposite. A good marketing machine is like a very, very good joint task force.
Dude, I
Isn't that crazy?
That is super. I mean, it's funny. You're like watching real time. Maybe like, God, that makes perfect sense. I should have explained this shit like that before.
Yeah, and it's something I've been thinking about over the last few years too. And so when you asked, it's not something I prepped even. I've been thinking about it, and I feel like it's just so clear. Like especially if you've been,
It's a perfect exemplar. Like, hey,
yeah,
use this thing you really know as a proxy for this thing you think you don't know, and like, it's not as scary anymore.
yeah. And if you think about it too, I mean, it's a good marketing. You guys know your events. You guys know when you're speaking. How are you going to promote that? What are the after effects? How are you measuring AARs? Like we do all that shit in marketing too. A successful marketing unit does that. And it's like without the military, without being a field artillery officer, an FSO, being forced to be a battalion FSO as a fresh first lieutenant and deploying and being in front of the battalion commander and the brigade commander, combined arms rehearsals where you're on the fucking spot at 24 and you're like, oh shit. Like all those things have kind of helped prepare me to then, brief the bosses at the companies that I've been at and kind of having and taking a lot of shit too. It's not always,
Oh yeah.
sunshine and fucking roses. Like there's a lot of things that take place in marketing that you have to test and you're going to take a lot of shit on the chin. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of marketers don't get enough, maybe not exposure is not the right word, but like there's not enough support, I think, in the marketing world because it is tough. But you also just have to not take stuff personal and you just have to roll with the punches.
It's business, but I agree with that. I think it leads me to this, right? Like we talk about maybe how folks have misconceptions about like what marketing is or what isn't. Yeah. Where do we get a bunch of folks who are founders, company operators, CEOs, and growth officers that sort of tune into the show. How should folks think about, investment in marketing? Like, do I get a super hot social channel and I like use that? Do I do events based? When's the right time? I think everyone sort of struggles because like a lot of folks. And I know I've been through the show. God, I've called you asking advice on it. Of like,
yeah.
I'm like looking at it. I'm like, there's an opportunity here. I don't really know how to like break this down and think about it. What advice do you give to folks on thinking about like dollar in, ROI, however you structure it on like when to invest in marketing?
Yeah, especially when like there's so many agencies, right? And there's so many tools and systems, and now with agentic AI, you just like there's almost too much stuff to potentially test. I think it boils down to a simple mission statement, and maybe from someone like you on the leadership side, like what are we actually trying to do this year, and where do we want to go in 2020? Where do we want to be by 2027? And for B2B marketing, when I was at AWS, social was a huge lever for us to meet those programmers, developers, the nerds, if you will, across social media and pump them with what AWS is doing across, different software updates and AI and all that stuff. I think it boils down to seeing what industry you're in. Like if you're B2B, probably a paid social tactic and having some, maybe some goofy awareness stuff on what the SaaS is and maybe some updates could be a smart move if you want to like break in a certain demographic or industry or region. And then if you're a B2C company, like where I'm at now, social media can make or break you. So you really want to put like a lot of attention there. You probably want to get a little tactical as to how you do other advertising levers, but you know the consumer is on social media 90% of the day, so you want to focus your efforts there. So for B2B, I guess for those listening in, understand where your consumers are, where you want to be in 2027 as a company, revenue wise, where you want to be regionally and globally, and then start to see where those audiences are. If it's LinkedIn, maybe dial up on LinkedIn, reserve some budget for LinkedIn with some short, snappy, dope, cool content that speaks to you. And what the biggest issue I always had at Amazon, it's not Amazon's fault. There's a lot of brands like that, is like the boring enterprise social content is just, it doesn't perform. It's so boring. Audiences can see through it. Like what you guys do great is just like having awesome branding and tone and speaking to what you're in, like defense tech and in the defense industry. And I think more brands could probably learn from you guys in your sector. And you'll have some copycats, I bet. But I think it's important, like I said, to just understand where you guys want to be in a few years and then see where those audiences are and do some competitive research too. What are the competitors doing? What are they doing in Israel? What are they doing in Japan? What's working for them? There's nothing that says you can't apply those same tools and tactics into what your marketing strategy is. And so I think it would be for marketers and leaders to understand like what their competitors are doing is huge. Like we do competitive research all the time. That's how we're successful too. Like you just have to know what the other one's doing, and maybe what they're not doing can help dictate some of your strategy.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting. With you talk about sort of the changing nature, from a competitive, from a channel scape, some of the different maybe frequency where things happen, right? At enterprise, it maybe moves a little slower. B2C, an influencer picks something up, some of those battle drills and the speed with which you've got to implement them. You also sort of talk about the rise of agentic capabilities and stuff.
Yeah.
How have you seen, as somebody behind the scenes in a lot of these, big brands, big campaigns, really architecting and implementing,
Mm-hmm.
how are you seeing some of that, agentic capability? Disrupt is like a little bit of a buzzword, but like,
It's coming.
yeah, man, like what's that been like with the rise of that
Yeah.
and like the diffusion of that?
So I think to level set, I think as a social media marketer today and as a marketer in general, if you're not using a AI tool or at least a few, you're fucking yourself hard. The ability to just rinse and repeat, churn out trends and content campaign plans and copy and help break through data is saving people hundreds of hours of time from the marketing side. And you have to be in there because as companies push forward and you guys are in the space too, and as Anthropic and AWS and Google are putting out all these awesome systems, you have to stay in tune with that as a marketer.
Yep.
And to your point as well, some of the stuff that Google VO 2 or 3 is doing, like I'll text it to you after this, but there was a video I saw last night of a biblical, it was an AI series, 10 seconds each of like David and Goliath, Moses, and then some other biblical features and figures created by AI, a really good AI video processor, and it looked real. And it was essentially Moses and then shot back over to David versus Goliath, speaking like, you know, 21st century slang, like for real, no cap, like we made it, like we survived, like all that kind of stuff. It looks so real. If you were to show it to my mother or some of our relatives, they think like, oh, that was a great job by Tom Cruise's studio or something. But I feel like if you're not plugged into what's happening with AI and how, Grok is doing this and Google's doing this with video and ChatGPT is doing this with imagery and illustration, like you're really shooting yourself in the foot. And what's awesome about those tools is that even you as a CEO or people who are not inherent marketers by trade can become better at their job. And you can see what other companies are doing, maybe how you can help your marketing team out. And so I think it's a huge source of integration and like innovation for all marketing teams.
Yeah, it's been interesting. Like I'm on the tech side of it, right?
Yeah.
It's such an accelerant where like you're
Yes.
trying to figure out and like I can sit and go back and forth in like some simple tooling to go build an app and I can be working with a tool to do code generation, and instead of going back and forth and figuring, you're just engaging directly with the agent. You're like, hey,
Yeah.
I want this, I need these languages, I need these dependencies, like these hooks go. I do the same thing as you're talking about from like a competitive research, or if
Yeah. Okay.
I'm prepping for a presentation and I'm like, hey, these 6 people are also presenting. Can you catalog the last 20 things that they've done, major positions they've had, any controversial statements, so you could start to really understand. I think there had been this fear that like, hey,
Hmm.
it's coming for our robot overlords, are coming for us. I'm like, well, like, wouldn't it be cool if it didn't take you 20 fucking hours to do this thing? It only took you
Yeah.
20 minutes. Like, that's
I
pretty
agree.
gangster. Go take
I
a nap
agree.
after. Yeah.
I agree, Tyler. And we started, what was great about AWS, outside of some of the boring content we had to get out, just being at the forefront, the tip of the spear, if you will, of tech, and the way I'm
Yeah.
applying some of that process and enablement. Like Claude is my favorite, dude. I use Claude
Yeah.
for so much writing and drafting and just cohesiveness and like the ability to sort through the mess and notes. Claude is my favorite. And because of my job at AWS, I think I'm a better marketer because we were so data driven there and we were at the forefront of working with all these different tech companies and understanding what works for AI.
Yeah,
And
your ability to understand the data and to make the seemingly very, very tactical, very, very strategic,
mhm,
I think is unicorn like, bro. It's
yeah,
pretty gangster to watch.
I appreciate that. And it's been tough. And here's the thing about marketing though, too. It's 24/7, right? So it's
Yeah.
like it is, and I feel like actually maybe you probably answer this better than I can, but like, do you feel that because marketing is just so much more integrated and with the rise of social media, do you feel that like CEO positions, COO positions, revenue roles, development roles, I feel like it's almost getting more difficult where like we're working longer hours to some extent because the light is always on, especially when it comes to social. Like, how do you view that as a CEO?
That's a that's a really cool question and an angle there. I think, yeah, listen, man. I mean, like, we've got teams in Europe. Like,
Yeah.
I get up at 4:05 every day I'm home. And I mean,
Okay.
it's like a before I go do PT, I'm like, let's see if anything chaotic happened in like
Right.
the last 5 hours, because I can't even
Yeah.
go to sleep until 11,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's certainly like, gone are the days where you're like, oh, it's Friday at 5, like, the war's over until Monday
Yeah.
at 9. Like, that's gone. I think the fact that anybody can sort of say anything, facts be damned. You got the ability to like reach out and touch. So we've, for all of the goodness that like the internet and this diffusion of tools has created, and like hyper empowered individuals to be able to build applications, to build narratives, to learn about things that maybe previously were gate kept at like universities and stuff. Like, that's awesome. The
Yeah.
flip side of that is like, you can kind of throw darts at anybody from around the world, and
Yeah.
as a head marketing, as a head of a company, as a revenue leader, like, you got to be cognizant of that. And I think it's certainly grown in complexity. I don't think that genie's never going back in the bottle on,
Yeah.
hey, like, the work week starts and stops. I mean, I make the joke, like, even if I'm not working, I'm still, you check every like 20 minutes, every hour, like, make sure something crazy hasn't happened.
Yeah.
So I think that's, for better or worse, it's changed, I think, the nature of work. I think that juxtaposed with like the diaspora of COVID and
Yes.
everybody sort of like being pushed away from brick and mortar and like down into their house has now blurred the lines,
Yeah.
maybe to like our detriment of society. Of like, I love the fact that I can walk off this and walk out these 2 doors, and like, my dog will be right there.
Yeah.
Family's there. It's also tough that there's now inherently there's no separation. Like I
Hmm.
used to when I drove home from work, right? I had the rule, like, 2 exits away from home, stop thinking about work and try to like be
Yeah.
present. So I think that's it's the thing we haven't really like figured. I haven't figured out, I guess I should say, is like how to
I
have
haven't
those
either.
two worlds coalesce in a good way.
I haven't either. I think it's really tough, especially in marketing and social media where it's always on.
Yeah.
That's one of my biggest struggles, especially as a family guy, a young
Yeah.
dad with, another kid on the way. It's like the being present and switching off thing is really difficult for me because there's so much more work to be done and I'm such a go-getter and I have a hard time sometimes of turning that part of Rob off and then adjusting back to 35-year-old awesome dad.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like that
Dude,
for me is
Hannah
tough.
sometimes will be like, I don't need CEO Tyler right now. I need dad.
Yeah,
Like
I
just
know.
go be dad. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
shit, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, and I
I
think
think
it's
it's something you just gotta chase. I don't think anyone's
yeah.
ever gonna get it right.
Yeah.
So
It's just but little tweaks here and there, like to your point, like driving home. I work from home unless I'm in, a headquarters right now for work, but I kind of miss that drive from
mhm,
the office,
big
like
time.
just a little bit.
To
Even if I was in
decompress.
traffic, even if I
Yep.
was in traffic, there's something to now in the mornings it fucking sucks.
Yeah.
But at night, there's nothing better. And then you go to the gym or something. Like I
Yep.
kind of miss that. And the
Yep.
way my setup is in Las Vegas, where I work out of and where home is, I have my office and then bathroom is right there. And then I have my son's room. And it's like, I love that proximity. It can get tough because he's 18 months and he's loud and he's like a little devil. I love it. But then sometimes you're like, oh man, like this is a little challenging. And so that's something where, especially with guys like us, where we have such a huge desire to crush it, I think sometimes we just need to slow down and be like, separate.
I agree. I agree. I think like it's the same thing at work, right? Like every day
Yeah.
at work, we're trying to figure out how can I do like 1 inch further or 1% better. It's the same at home, and it's just one of those things you can't pour yourself 100% into either cup.
hmm
It's probably not 50-50. I think that the magic is recognizing like the equilibrium will shift. Some days the family will need more, some days
Yeah.
work will need more, and like trying to achieve a little bit of balance there, which is
Yeah.
super easy for me to talk about. I often fail at that, but
Yeah.
I give it the college try. So
I think as long as you have it in your purview and it's like you're tracking it, I think that's already a good step. I think there's
yeah,
probably so many other people that aren't even considering that, or
yeah,
trying to be better. I think even if you just put forth a little effort, I think you're already winning.
yeah. I hope so. So
Yeah.
all right. Last bit of structure, because if I don't put structure in, I can sit here and do this with you for like 7
Yeah.
hours because this rocks. So
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
all right, Robbie's king for a day. You got a
Mm-hmm.
magic wand. You can change anything. It can be about marketing. It can be about work. It can be about
Anything.
the army. It can be about anything. We've had, Chipotle should serve dessert. We've had copyright law should change. We've had everything. What's the one thing you change and why?
Man. As a European guy, I wish we could bring back the Concorde and just make travel from the west coast of the USA just so much fucking easier to Europe.
Yep.
Like that's to me like time and energy spent and like now as I get older and I have kids, like that is so huge and crucial to me. And I'm just like, as I have so many relatives and really good friends. Some of my best friends are all in Germany still or Denmark. My grandparents are still there. My mom and dad were just over there visiting family in Austria. Like it's home for me. And I'm in Vegas. So it's like a 10-hour, 11-hour stretch to Frankfurt.
Nightmare flight.
And it's like, even if you get business class, bro, you're still on a fucking plane for like 15, 16 hours. And it's like, and you got to do the whole check bag thing. You got to go through passport control. So to me, if there's a way where we could speed up, like I love AI, agentic AI, all the crazy cool shit we're doing with innovation. But if we can just get some commercial travel a little more dialed in and faster.
Give me like the Stargate where I can just
Dude,
give me that.
I don't even need it. I don't even have to go to like my grandparents' town. Just get me over to Europe, even if it's London. Like I'll figure it out. But like just get me over the Atlantic faster.
Faster.
And
I like
that's
that.
probably
That's a
my
great
dream,
answer.
bro.
Dude, that's a
Yeah.
great. That's a great answer. It's the first
Yeah.
time we've had that. That rocks. So
Just like, dude, even from DC to London or DC to Charles de Gaulle or
yeah,
DC to like fucking Frankfurt
yep.
from Dulles. Like, if you could do that in 3 hours, bro.
It'd be crazy.
Oh, think about
Yeah,
the
no,
business landscape change there.
yeah. As someone who flies back and forth there a lot, I would love for that
Yeah.
to not be as painful
Yeah.
way, man. Yeah.
I would
Well,
love
look,
that.
Rob, man, have been and continue to be your biggest friggin' fan. I am
Likewise, dude.
grateful to call you, a friend and a buddy and a
Yeah.
collaborator and all that. And thank you for spending time here today, for sharing a bunch of sort of the magic. Like, you've taken a really non-traditional path and you fucking crushed it. And
Appreciate that.
super proud, bro, and excited to see what comes at Black Rifle and beyond, brother. So thanks, man.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Tyler. Appreciate it, brother. Anytime, anywhere, you name it. And I look forward to seeing you at some Army games this year. Peace, brother.
Yeah, brother. See you guys. Thanks,
See ya.
everybody.